Welcome back to Talking Masters Footy with Sue and Flea.
Two women talking all things AFL Masters, the stories, the people, and the love of footy that doesn't stop at 35.
In our first episode, we shared how we found our way into Masters Footy.
And today we're diving into something really special, women in football.
Because let's be honest, footy hasn't always been a space where women felt that they belonged.
But that's changing.
More women are playing, coaching, volunteering and being part of the game than ever before.
And Masters Footy is a big part of that.
So today we're talking about what it's really like to be a woman in football, the experiences, the challenge and the laughs.
And why so many women are finding their place in Masters today.
And we're not doing it alone. We have a special guest joining us today.
Charlie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Lane. Thank you. It's a bit exciting.
So Charlie, first up, who are you? Tell us a bit about yourself and your connection to football.
Yeah, definitely. Charlie, or not everyone knows, but it does reveal itself when you've got a registered name properly, but my name's actually Charlene. I think my involvement, it's interesting. I'm actually, at the moment, I play for Williamstown Super Rules. However, I do really see myself as someone who plays for the league. I don't see myself singly as a particular football club. And that the reason for that would be that I started at the very first season that we had Masters in a combined side. I was actually playing for Churnside Park, but it was under the banner of Box Hill North because we had a combined side. And then I was actually living out this way in Williamstown, and my husband played for the club, and I just badgered and wore down the then president to start a women's team, so it'd be much easier for me to get to training instead of driving an hour and a half. I eventually broke him down and he agreed to a women's side there. And then a couple of years later, a really great side, Parkside Spurs, which at the time was an all-female club, had approached me to help them start up a Masters side for them as well. They had a really strong senior side. I think they might have had 3 sides at the time. They just wanted that landing spot for some of their older players and to extend that. So I went and I loved it, and I stayed and played with them for 2 years and then circled back to Williamstown again. So I think you can see where I sort of feel like I don't really say I'm certainly not a one-club person, and anytime there's a team that's short and I'm worried they're going to forfeit, I'll double up, been known to triple up on a day if I need to. I'm just all about the comp surviving and growing and having somewhere for women to be involved. So whichever jumper I wear really isn't that important to me, except really the one I'm wearing. I went into the wardrobe to go, what do I wear for the day? And this really called to me. So I thought, right, it's the Vic Metro top. If there's one thing I'm super proud of, it's actually the whole carnival. We can celebrate together the non-contact stuff that's happening now in the national space, but there's something really lovely about running out with people who are potentially people you play against during the comp, and there's this lovely coming together in this spirit that, I don't know, it makes me smile when I think about wearing the Big V jumper.
Yeah. So Charlie, what was your first game like?
My first game was actually...
Were you nervous walking into your first training session?
Oh, look, I was. My first game was actually senior footy, so the year before we started Masters. But in saying that, I think I was about 47 years old. And so it was the club that my son was playing at the time. Their senior side was going to be a bit short, and he convinced his sister and I to throw some boots on and just, don't worry, Mum, just get out there. Otherwise they're going to forfeit. And I was like, sure, I can do that. So I went to one training on the Wednesday night and realised, actually this is a bit more serious than just step out there and get them not to lose the points. I was like, okay, all right, there's a bit of pride that I have that I wanted to get quite good at it. So I did train really hard in that senior side, knowing that I had a lot of ground to cover. I am the first to say I am a netballer playing football. So it definitely didn't come naturally to me, and anyone that's played with me knows that I can't kick very far. I've worked on it, but it's still an absolute deficit in my game. So That first game, yeah, definitely was scared. I do remember my son saying to me, no matter what, if someone hurts you, you cannot show them that you're hurt. He goes, you just have to suck it up and don't show them. I was like, okay, okay. I'm thinking, well, I won't need to know that. Why is he telling me that? And then it was probably the second quarter, and I was matched up on this 18-year-old girl who just out the corner of my eye, I saw her line me up, and I was like, oh God, here we go. And just braced myself and absolutely winded the worst I've ever had in my life. It's happened to me a couple of times before in sport, but it was a fair hit. And I remember looking up and I could see him, and he was just glaring at me, and I was thinking, oh, that's it. I'm not allowed to show. I'm thinking, when does the air come back? When does the air come back? So eventually it did, and I just thought, well, if that's the worst that's going to happen, I'm fine. So I just kept running.
Charlie, I'm just going to jump in and say, even if you'd wanted to cry, you didn't have the wind to cry.
I was so fixated on, surely it comes back soon. Is it coming back now? Is it coming? So it was fine. So I just sort of realised that, you know what, I might not be able to muscle it with the young ones. Like I say, she would have been 18. I think she was in year 12. She was at a school local to where I was teaching. So I just figured I don't have to match it. I don't have to be the best out there, but I will bring my best. And so I very quickly thought about what can I do to build up my skills. And I think, if I'm really honest, I think I'm quite encouraging to people around me. I think I bring a bit of sense of fun to it. I don't take myself too seriously. So I think I still contribute in a way that, you know, I'm never going to be best on ground. I'm never going to win the game at the end. I know my role in the team, and I do that quite well. But I think what I can bring is I'm not scared. I'm not scared to get in there and you know, muck around with everyone. In saying that, I've landed in non-contact now at 58 years old, but I'll still do some contact games this year. But I do feel like my passion and my love is for growing the non-contact, and which I think you ladies share that passion with me too. That it's how do we drive and push. I don't know, the acceptance and validation of that comp. I think it was seen as a sort of poor relation to the side, and I feel like it's got real legitimacy in the last couple of years, and I think it's through, you know, women like ourselves that just kept championing it, kept saying, no, come and look at this. There's something really special here. And yeah, it's kind of proud. It's proud to see that here we are with a fixture with teams entering and players really keen to know more about it. So you can make something out of nothing.
Yeah, it certainly can. So, what's it been like being a woman in football?
Yeah, I think there is absolute differences, and I'm not going to highlight too many negative stories, because I don't want to dwell on things that people haven't done in the past in conversations or in actions to I'd actually say disrupt, delay. I think there's been a lot of resistance from different clubs and people that I've been around, even with, I think, good intentions to be inclusive of women. Their behaviours have made it really difficult for women to feel safe. And by safe, I do mean psychologically safe as well, and welcomed. You know, an example would be at a club that I was at. In the first 2 years that we were there was no women's showers. We were told if we wanted to have a shower, we had to use the 2 umpire showers. Now, my calculations, there's 24 of us, and there was 2 umpires showers. Neither of them had a door or a screen, and they opened into the public area. So there was sort of a door between where the showers were and then outside. So it certainly wasn't... many women chose not to shower in those circumstances. My husband was really quite outraged about it, and he went to Bunnings and bought shower screens and installed them himself to say that's ridiculous. You just can't have women showering like that. It's not okay. So, and again, I think the club acknowledged it, and they said, we're doing something about it. The rooms are going to get knocked down soon. We're going to get new ones. But we still had to, you know, we paid the same fees, but we didn't have the same services and opportunities and amenities. So, and again, I think they really meant well, but they didn't quite see why that was a big issue. Change room, even just saying, oh, we've got a bench that you can come and get a bit of a rub before the game. Now, people that know me know I'm pretty bold, and I'm not very shy, and I'm happy to jump in with the guys. are walking around half naked, they're getting a rub. But most women that I play football with are not okay in a mixed gendered environment like that, where people might not have a lot of clothing on, and certainly for their own modesty would not feel comfortable necessarily lying on a bed, leg up in the air, with all your dignity gone. And I've certainly been at clubs where they have not understood that you've needed a separate room for women to receive that same service about having a rub before a game or after a game. So I think it's got a lot better, but in the beginning, just those little things were really hard to continually keep raising again and again and again. So yeah, it has been different. And again, it's been a really interesting thing that's just happened to me in the last week, that someone who I think struggled enormously at my club about women being there has ended up being integrally involved in the women's team this year. And I had a little chuckle to myself that I could not have predicted this. The growth that that person's had to volunteer to now be at our game every week and to be involved when I certainly saw there was some resistance, whether it was not quite understanding or not able to be in someone else's shoes. I'm not quite sure what the resistance was, but credit to him, because this guy is now volunteering every week to be absolutely with us, and I just think credit to him.
I think some of it is because, I mean, I've seen it at our club as well. Some of the men sort of resistant to the women coming into their space. It's now actually our space. And, you know, originally it was sort of like, oh, you know, we've got to share the social rooms with the women. What are they doing in here? Yapping. They yap just as much as we do, I can tell you.
Yeah, we
Totally agree.
At training, you know, when everyone's in the room after training on a Wednesday having a meal, we literally, you know, we're shouting at each other.
I see that too.
Yeah.
I think
So
it raises a good point.
everyone at Eastern Warriors, without fail, I think would agree now that club would not be the same without the women's involvement.
I
Women
think my
bring,
current
you know,
club would
they
say that too.
Yeah, because women, they'll join the committee, they'll help organise things, they'll volunteer at things, so, and they bring a new kind of life into the club, you know, bit of oomph sometimes.
No, I agree, Sue, and I think something you just said before really resonated with me about, you know, the club rooms, it's we now, and I have absolutely found that was really interesting. The time that I spent at Parkside Spurs, where when I first joined them, they were an all-female club, and it was such a stark change for me going from a male-dominated club. Essentially, you know, had one women's side and, I don't know, 5 men's sides. So, you know, there was this real masculine energy, rightly so, around the place, to go into an all-female club. I must say, I think that's why I stayed for the 2 years as well. I really felt like I got a bit fatigued about the championing. I actually felt like I was spinning my wheels a bit. Like, I had a few people at the club saying to me, Charlie, you just need to be patient. You want things too quickly. And anyone that knows me, I'm not super shy and patient and not someone to sit back. I will keep going and asking and creating new pathways. I'm quite determined like that. So I felt like maybe I needed a break and they needed a break from me too, that they weren't ready for the pace that we were all coming. And I think the couple of years to go and be with a really established professional club that was all women, I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to push against anything, and it was just really lovely. But when I felt the time was right, I circled back to the club I'm at now to kind of go, come on, we're all in. And they'd come a long way in that 2 years too. Other really strong women at the club had taken up some of that space, and I went back to a different culture than what I left, and it was really lovely.
So at this point then, what do you think has been the most positive experience for you out of Masters Women's Football?
The first thing that came to mind, it was really interesting, friendship. I don't think there's a game that I could go to that I don't know most of the players.
Yeah.
I'm sure that will change now. I'm getting older, all these new, young, fresh ones are coming through. But I just feel like there's this lovely camaraderie that exists across all of the clubs, particularly the women that were in that inaugural season. There's something really lovely about that.
Yeah.
And I think, some of those girls, like when we go away to carnival and we're staying in accommodation interstate and you're bunking in with people, I would say they're just really genuine friendships. They're not just people you know through sport. They become real and in your life. And a number of those people have since retired from footy, and I've maintained that friendship. And I would not have met them if it wasn't for football. So I often think about this, that I work in education and I work with lots of different people, and I intersect with many different people and interests. But through football, there's a whole lot of people I wouldn't normally have met. I certainly probably wouldn't have sought them out for company or been in my friendship group. They wouldn't have come into my sphere at all. So being in the football club, they're just full of all these really interesting characters from a whole lot of backgrounds, a whole lot of reasons why they're there. We've joked about this before, that footy clubs are not made up of superstars. Absolutely not. Well, certainly not in Masters. There's a few, but it's more around... Yeah, it's more around people wanting to try something new, extend themselves, recapture a bit of time for themselves, volunteer. And so, I don't know, I just feel like it's really lovely. I think of all the women that have come try days, and whether they've just played a few games or they've come to training or they've played, all those people I've crossed paths with, and I learn from everyone that I meet. Some of those friendships become really lifelong and a really strong connection. And I think, I owe a lot to football, actually, all the people that I've met along the way. And, I look forward to seeing everyone when round one comes around. It's actually really nice to run into everyone and catch up and, what's been happening with you and your kids and your job. And we genuinely, I do think this is true, we genuinely do care about each other. There's a real respect for, they're not just someone you play football against. You're genuinely asking about them. It's nice.
Yeah. And so sort of thinking about our experiences and, our involvement, breaking into that sort of men's culture, what do you think clubs can do to better support women playing football? It might be there's a lot of existing Masters men's clubs that do not have a women's team.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
What do you think we can get them to do to help build those teams?
I think there's two things that come to mind for me. Is that a really good suggestion, and sorry to the league, you might not appreciate the suggestion here, is that I think they see it being a bit daunting, where do we start? It's too big. So unless they have an internal driver, someone at their club, like say I did with the current club I'm at, and I'm sure, both of you have been influential where you are too, unless someone from within that club drives it, does the come try days, does the recruiting, and just continues to build it, they're not going to do it on their own. So I think that the league, if they could come up with a model where there's a buddy system or a mentor or a neighbouring club or something could show them about, these are the things, like a bit of a package. This is what you do. This is how you recruit. And that they won't know, where do women hang out? How do they recruit them? And I know we've done stuff like we target primary schools and high school newsletters to get the mums from those clubs. We've got people doing drops at the local gyms of people that we think might be fit. We're going to community houses. I'm not sure, unless you're a community development kind of minded person like I am, I think they kind of just go, well, we've got this idea. Why aren't they coming? Why aren't they coming? They forget how much work goes from announcing their intention to hold a club. Because we know there's been at least 3 or 4 clubs that have said, yeah, we're ready to go. And then it falls down before the comp actually starts because they didn't quite get the numbers, or they didn't realise, what was involved or whatever. So I think the league, sorry again, league, I'm probably in trouble, but I feel like the package, the information and the recruiting almost needs to happen now for any club that wants to join next year. That there's a big lead in that needs to happen, and maybe like they've done successfully, some of these partnership clubs where you might not have the resources to run a standalone team. We've seen a couple of clubs do this historically, that 2 teams merge initially, build the infrastructure, get the networks in place, and then become two standalone teams. And dare we say, the model we've got with non-contacts. Okay, so if you're talking about having to field, well, what is 16 now rather than 18, but say you're looking for 22, 24 players, that might be a big ask if you're a startup side. So you could do a startup with non-contact, which we're saying 7 aside. You could have, even if you had 14, you could do a rolling subsystem where they're part of our culture of being at the games each week. They're getting footy for fun skills without the competition and ladder. And then the club builds from a base that's already got your core players. I think it is hard to start a whole club from scratch. You know, I've done it twice now, and it's actually a lot of work.
Yeah, it is.
I think a lot more than people realise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, Sue. Do you?
Oh no, I was just going to say, you know, that partnership model. I mean, that's what Morty Alec and Peninsula did over the last couple of years. Peninsula wanted to get a team up, couldn't quite get the numbers, so they went to their nearest club, which was Morty Alec, and then last year separated after, you know, they had a core group that knew how to play footy. So
I agree. I think it's a model, but really, I think remembering all these people are volunteers, right? And so they do need some guidance in how do you. I think when if you've got men's footy, and again, I'm thinking of my club, which is a really well supported club. I think we might be up to, dare I say, 7 teams or something like that in our Masters club, or maybe 8 now with non-contact. I don't know, but it's massive, and so. That actually helps build itself because those people all have networks. Those people have businesses, they can get sponsorship. All of a sudden, success grows success. So it's not, I shouldn't say it's not difficult because there's still work that happens. That's not being honouring to people that recruit. But when you've already got an established club, it's easier to maintain that. The startup bit is actually quite difficult. If you're a club that's got, say, 2 or 3 men's teams, you might not have the networks to get a whole full women's team up straight away. It might need one of these models we're talking about, non-contact startup or a merger with a local club, or having or some modelling from the league around, you know, how do we do this? What are the strategies that other people have used to build this community team?
Yeah. So, I mean, since 2018, when, you know, women's Masters first kind of got off the ground, to, you know, now we're in start of season 2026, or just about to. So why do you think at this point there are more women getting involved now? Like, there's got to be, you know, something's happening out there. Is it, you know, as you were saying, like a club such as yours, where there is so much, you know, there's so many members across the whole club, that's a lot of noise getting out there about Masters footy.
It is interesting. When I first started at the club, my husband and I were the only couples that were actually at the club. And I kept looking around going, how come none of the other wives want to play? How come none of the partners? Or surely you've got a sister? And I do think that in the beginning, and you touched on it before, Sue, I think they were protecting their space. So the club rooms, the games, the social stuff they did, that was their established network in, and I think there was some protection around, I don't really want my wife here, I don't really want my sister here, this is my bubble. This is where I do my connecting. And I think we need to acknowledge that. They had built up this really lovely network, and I think they had this really best kept secret of there's a lovely camaraderie from being in a football team. And they were, I think some of them were protecting, hang on, this works really well to serve us. These are our connections with other blokes. And we kind of like what goes on around here. We're not sure what's going to happen if you guys start coming.
So, Charlie, what then keeps you coming back each week?
I think I have an obligation to still contribute to positive communication between each other and pull up certain people if I hear them saying derogatory things on the field. And that's just not who we are. I don't think it's senior footy either, but it certainly seems to be a mindset of see ball, get ball, no matter what, take people out, and that is not Masters footy. It's you be competitive, you can test the ball, but you do it with sportsmanship. And I suppose I just want to champion that for one more year at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, do you think it's ever too late to start?
No, well, I think I opened earlier and I was talking about I didn't start until it was either 46, 47.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll fess up. Yeah, I'm 61. I think also with masters like the Vic Metro um, space, you know, adapting to that, not bringing in that non-contact, which this year's going to be the AFL's Footy Rush trial program, really creates a safe space for women who've never played footy, who don't want contact, but enjoy being part of a team, but also for women who are phasing out the other end. Like I'm 61, running against 35-year-olds is tough. And I played a couple of senior games last year, and one girl came up to me and went, I said, "Oh, I'm feeling every inch of my 60 years." And she went, "You're 60, I'm 16." And I thought, oh my God, what am I doing?
Maybe one day the general advice would be you must do one season of non-contact before you do contact footy. Learn your skills, even if it's just learning how to protect yourself, your head, picking up the ball.
I just want to quickly go through what's happening round one with Vic Metro. So we've got two new teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's two new teams entered into the Vic Metro comp this year, which brings us to 12 teams, which means that they've been able to split it into two divisions, which is great, better competition for those, not such a big spread of skill sets and things. So we've got round one, we've got Division 1, and that's at Murphy's Oval in Footscray. We've got Port Melbourne versus Williamstown at 10:15. We've got Parkside versus Mordialloc at 12:15, and Box Hill North versus one of the new clubs, Carrum, at 2:15. Gotta say, Carrum have the recruitment down pat. They've got something like 30 to 40 women on their register. They are in a prime area for new players, I think. Then we've got Division 2. So they're playing at Crispy Park, which is Northside's home ground over in Reservoir. We've got Wyndham, which is the old Werribee, versus Darebin at 10:15. Northside Lions playing Brunswick at 12:15. And Sunbury, who's our other new team in this year, versus Peninsula at 2:15. And of course, prior to all of that, at 9 o'clock, bright and early in the morning, at Murphy's Oval which is Parkside's Spurs home ground in Footscray, we've got Footy Rush at 9 a.m. So we'll have two games on the one ground because we play in smaller areas. And we've got Brunswick versus Williamstown and Parkside versus Eastern Warriors. And Carrum have also got a team in. They've got the bye the first week. I think they're actually playing maybe on the Sunday, I think, that weekend. Anyway, I could be making that up too. I am prone to making things up. So, well, I think that's a wrap on the episode number 2 of Talking Masters Footy with Sue and Flea and Charlie.
A big thank you, Charlie, for joining us and sharing your story. We love the chat, and yeah, I've learned things about you today that I didn't know.
Like you're an Aquarian.
Like you're an Aquarian. I must go and Google what that means, but anyway.
Yeah, so, it's conversations like this that remind us of how much the game has grown and how much we love footy.
Absolutely. So, if you're listening and you've ever thought of giving Masters Footy a go,
then Flea just skipped a line.
I did too. I've read your question.
So Flea, try again. So,
how important it is that women feel welcome, supported and part of the footy community.
So if you're listening and you've ever thought of giving Masters Footy a go,
well, this is your sign.
Apart from Aquarius.
And I'll be asking what it is.
So there's a place for you, no matter your age, experience, or your fitness level.
And if you are already a part of the Masters community,
keep showing up, supporting each other, and making our great game what it is.
We'd love to hear your stories too. So please reach out on our socials.
And the next episode, we'll be talking about what it's really like to play your first Masters game. Our next episode will be just after round 1. So we'll be able to chuck in some results and hopefully we can have a chat with a few people who've just started.
Yeah. So until then, remember,
it's
footy for fun.
And we're just getting started. And one day we'll time ourselves so that we get it together.